In the shadowed halls of medieval castles, where power and lineage determined destiny, there existed stories rarely told in the grand chronicles of kings and queens. These are the gentle tales of royal children who face the world with different statures, their lives shaped by both privilege and profound challenge. Tonight, we journey through the quieter corridors of history, where courage often came in smaller packages, and where the weight of crowns felt heavier on shoulders that bore them differently. The medieval world was one of rigid expectations and unwavering tradition. When a royal child was born, the entire kingdom held its breath, waiting to see if this new heir would embody the physical ideals of nobility. Height, strength, and imposing presence were considered divine gifts, markers of worthiness to rule. Yet sometimes, fate chose a different path, and royal families found themselves welcoming children whose bodies would grow differently, whose journeys would be marked by both extraordinary resilience and heartbreaking isolation. In the flickering candlelight of royal nurseries, wet nurses and physicians would whisper their concerns in hushed tones. The child grows slowly. They might say, their voices heavy with implication. Perhaps time will remedy them. But as months turned to years, it became clear that some princes and princesses would navigate the world from a different perspective, both literally and figuratively. These children, born with what we now understand as various forms of dwarfism, faced a complex tapestry of challenges that extended far beyond their physical differences. The court of King Edward III of England witnessed such a situation in the 14th century. Though records speak carefully around the subject, palace chroniclers wrote of a young prince who remained small in stature, yet large in spirit, a diplomatic way of acknowledging difference without offending royal sensibility. The child's tutors were said to have created special platforms and modified furniture, allowing the young royal to participate in lessons and court ceremonies with dignity intact. Medieval medicine understood little about the genetic conditions that caused dwarfism. Physicians of the time attributed such differences to various factors: the alignment of stars at birth, the mother's diet during pregnancy, or divine intervention. Some believed that consuming certain herbs during pregnancy might prevent such conditions, while others saw the birth of a child with dwarfism as a sign of either divine blessing or curse, depending on the prevailing religious interpretation of the time. The social implications were profound and immediate. Royal children were expected to embody the strength and majesty of their bloodlines, to command respect through physical presence as much as inherited authority. When a prince or princess could not meet these conventional expectations, palace advisors faced delicate decisions about succession, marriage prospects, and public appearances. The very foundations of medieval monarchy, built on concepts of divine right and physical manifestation of power, were quietly challenged. In the court of France during the reign of Louis IX, later canonized as Saint Louis, there are whispered accounts of a royal cousin born with achondroplasia, the most common form of dwarfism. The child, whose name has been carefully omitted from official records, was said to have possessed remarkable intelligence and wit. Court musicians composed gentle lullabies specifically for this young noble, songs that spoke of inner beauty and hidden strength. These melodies, passed down through generations of court musicians, carried subtle messages of acceptance and love. The daily life of such royal children required constant adaptation and careful navigation. Morning routines began with specially designed clothing, crafted by the finest tailors who worked in absolute discretion. These garments were not merely smaller versions of typical royal attire, but carefully constructed pieces that maintained dignity while accommodating different proportions. The seamstresses and tailors who worked on such projects were sworn to secrecy, their craft becoming a form of quiet advocacy for their small patrons. Educational pursuits presented unique challenges and opportunities. While physical training in swordsmanship and horseback riding proved difficult or impossible, many royal children with dwarfism excelled in intellectual pursuits. They became scholars, linguists, and strategists. Their minds sharp and their perspectives unique. Private tutors often remarked on their exceptional memory and analytical abilities, perhaps developed as compensation for physical limitations, or simply as natural gifts that flourished when given proper attention. The Spanish court of the 13th century provides another glimpse into these hidden histories. Documents from the reign of Alfonso X, known as Alfonso the Wise, mention a young infanta, whose pequeña estatura no disminuía su gran corazón, whose small stature did not diminish her great heart. This princess, according to fragmentary records, became an accomplished poet and mathematician, her work influencing court scholars despite never being publicly attributed to her name. Marriage negotiations for royal children with dwarfism were particularly complex affairs. Medieval marriages among nobility were political alliances first, personal relationships second. When one party had dwarfism, diplomatic correspondence took on delicate tone. Ambassadors learned to speak in careful euphemisms. The princess possesses uncommon charm, despite her diminutive frame, or the prince's noble bearing transcends physical consideration. These negotiations often stretched for years, as families weighed political advantages against social concerns. Some royal children with dwarfism found their marriage prospects limited to other nobles with similar conditions, creating small communities within the broader aristocracy. These unions, while sometimes loving and successful, could also feel like arrangements of convenience rather than choice. The children born from such marriages faced their own complex inheritance of both privilege and challenge, their futures shaped by the accumulated wisdom and accumulated burdens of their parents' experiences. The religious context of medieval Europe added another layer to these stories. The Catholic Church's teachings about divine will and acceptance of God's plan provided some comfort to families, yet also contributed to the stigmatization. Some clergy preached that physical differences were tests of faith, opportunities for spiritual growth through suffering. Others suggested that such children were blessed with special insights, closer to divine truth because of their earthly challenges. These varying interpretations created confusion and sometimes contradictory treatment within royal court. Monastery records from the Abbey of Saint Denis in France contain references to a young prince with dwarfism who sought refuge in religious life. The monks wrote of his exceptional devotion and his ability to comfort other residents through his gentle understanding of suffering. His prayers were said to be particularly beautiful, his voice carrying a clarity that seemed to reach directly to heaven. This prince chose a life of contemplation over the complexities of court politics, finding peace in spiritual pursuit. The practical challenges of castle life for children with dwarfism required creative solutions. Stone steps became obstacles that demanded careful navigation or outright avoidance. Dining halls with their massive tables and high-backed chairs necessitated custom seating arrangement. Even simple acts like reaching for books in the castle library or participating in court ceremonies required thoughtful preparation and often assistance from sympathetic servants. Palace servants, particularly those who worked closely with these royal children, often developed deep bonds of loyalty and protection. Nursemaids, pages and personal attendants became advocates and companions, their service extending far beyond typical duty. These servants, bound by oath and affection, created networks of support that helped their young charges navigate both physical and social obstacles. Their testimonies, preserved in some personal letters and informal records, reveal touching relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. The artistic patronage of medieval courts sometimes reflected the presence of these special royal family members. Illuminated manuscripts occasionally featured subtle references to different forms of human beauty. Tapestries depicted diverse figures in court scenes, and sculptures in castle chapels included representations that suggested broader concepts of divine creation. These artistic choices, while never explicitly acknowledged, created environments of subtle acceptance and inclusion. Music played a particularly important role in the lives of royal children with dwarfism. Unable to participate fully in some physical court activities, Many found solace and expression through musical pursuits. Palace records speak of young nobles who became accomplished lute players, singers, or composers. Their musical contributions often carried emotional depth that resonated throughout the court, their personal experiences of difference translating into art that touched listeners in profound ways. The troubadour tradition of medieval France includes several songs that, when examined closely, appear to tell stories of love and acceptance that transcend physical appearances. These ballads, performed in castle halls during evening entertainments, carried messages of inner beauty and true nobility, while never explicitly mentioning dwarfism. Their themes of seeing beyond surface appearances and recognizing authentic worth created cultural spaces for broader acceptance. Winter months proved particularly challenging for royal children with dwarfism. Cold stone floors, high windows that admitted little light, and the general dampness of medieval castles affected everyone. But these children often felt the cold more acutely due to their smaller body mass. Palace staff learned to provide additional warm clothing, position braziers more strategically, and create cozy alcoves where these young nobles could stay comfortable during the harsh months. The development of medieval medicine gradually began to provide more nuanced understanding of dwarfism. Though progress was slow and often mixed with superstition, court physicians began to observe that these conditions were present from birth and remained stable throughout life, rather than being diseases that might be cured. This understanding led to better care strategies focused on accommodation and support, rather than futile attempts at treatment through potentially harmful remedies. Royal children with dwarfism often developed exceptional skills in observation and diplomacy, perhaps as natural adaptations to their unique position. Unable to rely on physical intimidation or commanding presence, they learned to navigate court politics through intelligence, charm, and careful relationship building. Many became trusted advisors to their siblings or parents, their different perspective providing valuable insights into human nature and political dynamics. The Crusades era brought its own complications for royal families dealing with dwarfism. Military campaigns were central to medieval noble identity, yet these expeditions were obviously impossible for children with physical limitations. Some found alternative ways to contribute, through fundraising, logistic support, or spiritual leadership. Their exclusion from military glory was both protective and isolating, keeping them safe while potentially limiting their social standing and personal fulfillment. Travel between castles and kingdoms presented ongoing challenges. Medieval transportation was uncomfortable for everyone, but particularly difficult for those with dwarfism. Special accommodations had to be made for longer journeys, modified saddles for horses, custom seating in carriages, and careful planning for overnight stops. These logistical considerations often determined which political events or family gatherings could be attended, sometimes resulting in social isolation despite royal status. The Byzantine Empire, with its complex court ceremonies and elaborate protocols, developed some of the most sophisticated accommodations for noble family members with dwarfism. Palace records from Constantinople describe specially designed platforms, modified throne arrangements, and ceremonial garments that maintain dignity while acknowledging physical realities. The Byzantine approach seemed more accepting of human diversity, perhaps reflecting the empire's cosmopolitan nature and exposure to various cultures and peoples. Feast days and religious celebrations required careful planning. When royal children with dwarfism were involved, processions had to consider different walking speeds and physical capabilities. Ceremonial roles were modified to ensure participation without awkwardness or danger. Church services sometimes included special seating arrangements or alternative ways to participate in rituals. These adaptations, while well-intentioned, could also highlight differences in ways that felt uncomfortable or exclusionary. The education of royal children with dwarfism often emphasized intellectual and artistic pursuits over physical training. Languages, mathematics, history, and philosophy became primary focuses, creating some of the most learned members of medieval nobility. Their libraries were extensive, their correspondence with scholars widespread, and their contributions to intellectual discourse significant, even if not always publicly acknowledged due to their gender or physical status. Seasonal celebrations brought both joy and challenge. Spring festivals with their outdoor activities, summer tournaments with their physical competitions, autumn hunts with their demanding physical requirements. All of these traditional noble pastimes required careful consideration and often creative alternatives. Some royal children with dwarfism became patrons of these events rather than participants, developing roles as generous hosts and thoughtful organizers. The development of mechanical clocks in later medieval periods coincidentally provided some benefits for royal family members with dwarfism. More predictable scheduling of court activities allowed for better planning of accommodations and participation. The growing emphasis on punctuality and precise timing created structures that could better include those who needed additional preparation time or special arrangements for various activities. Portraiture and official representations posed delicate challenges for medieval art. Royal portraits were expected to project power and divine authority, characteristics often associated with physical imposing presence. Artists developed subtle techniques for creating dignified representations that honored their subjects while maintaining artistic convention. These portraits, when they survive, often reveal remarkable sensitivity and skill in capturing inner strength and nobility of spirit. The gradual development of written law codes throughout medieval Europe sometimes included provisions that affected inheritance rights for those with physical differences. While rarely explicit about dwarfism, these legal frameworks occasionally addressed questions of succession, marriage rights, and property inheritance in ways that could impact royal family members with such conditions. The evolution of these laws reflected changing social attitudes and increasing legal sophistication. Castle architecture gradually began to show subtle modifications that suggested accommodation for different physical needs. Steps with varied heights, railings positioned at multiple levels, and doorways with different proportions appeared in some later medieval construction. While these changes were never publicly attributed to specific individuals, they suggest an awareness of diverse physical requirements among castle residents. The tradition of royal genealogies and family histories presents interesting challenges when examining the lives of royal children with dwarfism. These formal records often employed careful language or complete omission when discussing family members whose lives didn't fit conventional narrative. Reading between the lines of these historical documents reveals hints of hidden stories and suppressed experiences that deserve recognition and remembrance. Medical knowledge about genetics remained non-existent throughout the medieval period, leading to various theories about the causes and implications of dwarfism. Some physicians believed it was related to maternal diet or emotions during pregnancy. Others suggested astrological influences or divine intervention. These theories, while scientifically incorrect, influenced how families and courts responded to affected children, sometimes creating additional stress and guilt for parents. The concept of divine right of kings became complicated when applied to rulers with physical differences. Medieval political theory emphasized the connection between physical presence and legitimate authority. Royal children with dwarfism challenged these assumptions, sometimes leading to creative reinterpretations of divine mandate that emphasized spiritual rather than physical attributes. These theological discussions, while rarely public, influenced succession decisions and political arrangement. Diplomatic marriages involving royal children with dwarfism required exceptional skill and sensitivity from negotiators. Marriage proposals had to be worded carefully, emphasizing positive qualities while honestly addressing potential concerns. Some negotiations included provisions for special accommodations or modified expectations. The success of these diplomatic efforts often determined whether a royal child with dwarfism would find companionship and acceptance or face isolation and rejection. The role of court entertainers and jesters created complex dynamics around royal children with dwarfism. While some entertainers also had dwarfism and might have provided companionship and understanding, the association between physical difference and entertainment could create uncomfortable parallels. Some royal families worked carefully to distinguish between their family members and court performers, while others embraced the opportunity for their children to find community and accept. Seasonal hunting expeditions, central to medieval noble culture, required creative adaptation for royal children with dwarfism. Some became enthusiastic patrons of hunting parties, organizing elaborate feasts and celebrations for returning hunters. Others developed alternative outdoor activities like falconry, which could be adapted for different physical capabilities. These modifications allowed participation in seasonal traditions while acknowledging physical limitations. The development of mechanical aids and assistive devices showed medieval ingenuity in addressing practical challenges. Custom furniture, modified tools, and creative solutions for daily activities demonstrated the care and creativity that palace craftsmen brought to supporting their unique royal residence. These innovations, while created for specific individuals, sometimes influenced broader approaches to accommodation and accessibility. Religious pilgrimage, an important aspect of medieval spiritual life, presented particular challenges and opportunities for royal children with dwarfism. While long journeys were physically demanding, some found that pilgrimages offered opportunities for spiritual growth and social acceptance. Pilgrimage communities often emphasized spiritual equality and divine love that transcended physical differences, creating environments where these royal children might experience unusual acceptance and fellowship. The tradition of medieval romance literature occasionally included characters who might represent individuals with dwarfism, though always disguised in fantasy or allegory. These literary representations, while not explicitly accurate, provided cultural frameworks for understanding difference, courage, and inner nobility. Some royal children with dwarfism became patrons of such literature, perhaps finding comfort and recognition in stories that celebrated unconventional heroes. Palace gardens and outdoor spaces were sometimes modified to be more accessible for royal family members with different physical needs. Raised beds, accessible pathways, and seating areas at various heights created environments where everyone could enjoy nature and outdoor activity. These design considerations, while subtle, demonstrated thoughtful planning and inclusive design principles centuries before such concepts became widespread. The economic implications of supporting a royal child with dwarfism were significant, but rarely discussed directly. Custom clothing, modified furniture, specialized transportation, and additional servants all required resources. However, royal families generally absorbed these costs without complaint, viewing proper care for all family members as a matter of honor and responsibility. The economic burden was considered part of the price of maintaining royal dignity and family loyalty. Educational exchanges between courts sometimes included considerations about the needs of royal children with dwarfism. Visiting scholars, tutors, and educational programs were selected partly based on their ability to work effectively with diverse students. These educational networks created opportunities for sharing knowledge and strategies for supporting learning and development regardless of physical characteristics. The preservation of historical records about royal children with dwarfism reflects medieval attitudes toward public image and family privacy. Official chronicles often omitted or minimized references to such family members, while private correspondence and personal documents sometimes provide more honest accounts. This selective preservation means that many stories remain partially hidden, requiring careful historical detective work to uncover and understand. Military training and ceremonial roles required creative adaptation for royal children with dwarfism. While they couldn't participate in traditional combat training, some developed expertise in strategy, logistics, or diplomatic aspects of military affairs. Ceremonial roles were modified to maintain dignity while accommodating physical reality. These adaptations sometimes led to innovations in court protocol that became standard practice. The development of portrait miniatures in later medieval periods provided new opportunities for representation that might be more comfortable for royal family members with dwarfism. These smaller, more intimate artistic formats could focus on facial features and personal character, rather than full-body representations that might emphasize physical differences. Miniature portraits became treasured family heirlooms that preserved dignity and affection. Seasonal migrations between royal residences required extensive planning when royal children with dwarfism were involved. Different castles and palaces needed appropriate accommodations, transportation had to be carefully arranged, and advanced preparations were necessary to ensure comfort and dignity at each destination. These logistical challenges sometimes limited mobility but also demonstrated the lengths to which royal families would go to include all family members in court life. The tradition of royal marriages as public celebrations presented particular challenges when one party had dwarfism. Wedding ceremonies required careful planning to ensure dignity and participation while managing public expectations and social protocols. Some couples chose more private ceremonies, while others embraced public celebration with creative accommodation. These events often set precedents for how society viewed and treated individuals with dwarfism. Medical care for royal children with dwarfism gradually improved throughout the medieval period as understanding increased and techniques developed. Court physicians learned to focus on overall health and comfort rather than attempting impossible cures. Pain management, mobility assistance, and preventive care became primary focuses. This shift in medical approach represented important progress in disability awareness and care. The role of royal children with dwarfism in succession planning created complex legal and political situations. While rarely excluded entirely from inheritance rights, their positions in succession were often complicated by questions about their ability to fulfill traditional royal duties. Some families developed creative solutions that honored both legal rights and practical considerations, creating new models for inclusive governance. Cultural traditions around royal childhood were gradually modified to accommodate diverse needs and abilities. Coming-of-age ceremonies, educational milestones, and social debuts were adapted to ensure participation and dignity for all royal children. These modifications often required diplomatic skill and creativity, but demonstrated family commitment to inclusion and acceptance. The legacy of medieval royal children with dwarfism extends beyond their individual stories to influence broader social attitudes and practices. Their presence in royal courts challenged conventional assumptions about leadership, worth, and human dignity. While progress was slow and often incomplete, these young nobles helped establish precedents for accommodation, acceptance, and recognition of human diversity that would gradually influence larger social changes. As night settles over these ancient stories, we remember these royal children, not as victims of their circumstances but as complex individuals who navigated extraordinary challenges with remarkable resilience. Their lives, lived quietly in the shadows of grand historical narratives, remind us that courage comes in many forms and that true nobility resides in the heart rather than in physical stature. In their gentle struggles and quiet victories, we find timeless lessons about human dignity, family loyalty, and the enduring power of love to transcend all difference. Their stories, whispered through the centuries, continue to inspire us to build a world where every child, regardless of their physical characteristics, can find acceptance, opportunity, and the chance to fulfill their unique potential. These young nobles, born into privilege, yet facing profound challenges, carved out spaces of dignity and achievement that honor both their memory and their example. In remembering them, we honor not just their individual courage, but the eternal human capacity to create meaning, find joy, and build community even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The winter courts of northern European kingdoms presented unique challenges for royal children with dwarfism, where the long months of darkness seemed to echo the social shadows they often inhabit. In the court of Denmark, during the reign of King Valdemar II, palace records speak obliquely of a young princess whose delicate constitution required special consideration during the harsh season. The royal seamstresses worked by candlelight to create layers of specially fitted garments, each piece crafted to provide warmth without restricting movement or creating bulk that might appear undignified in court appearance. These winter months became times of intense intellectual activity for many royal children with dwarfism, as the confined nature of castle life during cold seasons actually leveled the playing field somewhat. When outdoor activities were impossible for everyone, those who had already adapted to indoor pursuits found themselves at an advantage. Palace libraries became centers of activity, where young nobles with dwarfism often emerged as leaders in scholarly discussions, their prepared minds and extensive reading giving them confidence and authority that physical presence might not have provided. The tradition of Yuletide celebrations required careful orchestration when royal family members with dwarfism participated in the festivity. The great halls, decorated with evergreen boughs and filled with the warm glow of hundreds of candles, hosted elaborate feasts where seating arrangements became matters of diplomatic importance. Palace stewards learned to create environments where every family member could participate fully in the celebrations, from the ceremonial lighting of the Yule log to the exchange of gifts that marked the season's joy. Gift-giving traditions within royal families often reflected the special needs and interests of children with dwarfism, rather than the typical weapons, armor, or hunting equipment that might be given to other royal children. These young nobles often received beautifully crafted books, musical instruments, artistic supplies, or specially designed games that could provide entertainment and education. These gifts, chosen with thoughtful consideration, demonstrated family awareness of individual interests and capabilities rather than generic expectations. The emergence of medieval universities created new opportunities for royal children with dwarfism, who possessed strong intellectual capabilities. The University of Bologna, founded in 1008, and later institutions like the University of Paris began to attract noble students based on merit rather than physical characteristics. Some royal children with dwarfism found in these academic environments a level of acceptance and respect that court life might not always provide, their minds proving more important than their stature in scholarly pursuit. Correspondence between medieval courts sometimes included discreet inquiries about accommodations and protocols when royal visits involved family members with dwarfism. These diplomatic exchanges, conducted through trusted ambassadors and written in carefully coded language, helped ensure that visiting nobles would be received with appropriate dignity and comfort. The development of these protocols represented a form of early international cooperation in matters of inclusion and accessibility. The role of personal attendants and companions for royal children with dwarfism evolved beyond typical servant relationships into something more akin to partnership. These trusted individuals, often chosen from minor noble families or educated commoners, became confidants, advocates, and sometimes lifelong friends. Their loyalty was rewarded with special positions in the royal household, and their families often received lasting favor and protection. The bonds formed in these relationships frequently lasted throughout the lives of both parties. Manuscript illumination in medieval monasteries occasionally featured diverse human forms that may have been inspired by the presence of royal patrons with dwarfism. While never explicitly identified, some illuminated texts show figures of various statures participating in religious ceremonies, courtly scenes, and biblical narratives. These artistic choices, subtle though they were, helped normalize the presence of people with different physical characteristics in religious and cultural contexts. The development of mechanical engineering in later medieval periods occasionally produced innovations that served the needs of royal family members with dwarfism. Pulley systems for opening heavy doors, adjustable furniture mechanisms, and specially designed transportation devices demonstrated the creative application of emerging technology to human needs. These inventions, while created for specific individuals, sometimes found broader applications and contributed to the general advancement of mechanical knowledge. Musical compositions from medieval courts sometimes carried themes that resonated with experiences of difference and acceptance. Composers who worked closely with royal families that included children with dwarfism occasionally created pieces that celebrated inner beauty, spiritual strength, and the triumph of character over circumstance. These musical works, performed during court entertainments, helped create cultural atmospheres that valued diverse forms of human excellence. The tradition of royal progresses, ceremonial journeys through the kingdom, required extensive modification when royal children with dwarfism participated. Routes were planned with careful attention to travel distances, rest stops, and accommodation capabilities. Special carriages were constructed or modified, and advanced teams prepared each stopping point with appropriate arrangements. These progresses, when successful, provided opportunities for public appearances that could help humanize and normalize the presence of royalty with physical differences. Medieval legal concepts of guardianship and protection, sometimes extended to royal adults with dwarfism, reflecting both concern for their welfare and assumptions about their capabilities. While these arrangements could provide security and support, they could also limit independence and decision-making authority. Some royal individuals with dwarfism successfully challenged these restrictions, establishing precedents for greater autonomy and self-determination that influenced later legal development. The Chronicles of the Holy Roman Empire contain several references to court ceremonies that were modified to accommodate the participation of noble family members with dwarfism. Imperial coronations, religious observances, and diplomatic receptions all required careful planning to ensure that every family member could participate with dignity. These ceremonial adaptations, while serving immediate practical needs, also sent subtle messages about inclusion and the value of all imperial family members. Seasonal agricultural celebrations, which often involved royal participation as symbols of connection between rulers and their subjects, presented opportunities for creative inclusion of royal children with dwarfism. Harvest festivals, planting ceremonies, and livestock celebrations could be adapted to allow meaningful participation regardless of physical stature. Some royal children with dwarfism became particularly associated with these agricultural celebrations, their presence seen as bringing special blessings to the land and its productivity. The tradition of medieval apprenticeships sometimes provided pathways for royal children with dwarfism to develop specialized skills and knowledge. While they might not follow typical military or administrative paths, some found fulfillment in scholarly pursuits, artistic endeavors, or specialized craft. These apprenticeships, carefully arranged through family connections, provided both practical education and social integration outside the sometimes insular world of royal courts. Palace workshops and artisan quarters became important spaces for royal children with dwarfism who showed interest in aptitude and creative pursuit. Metalworking, wood carving, textile production, and manuscript copying offered hands-on activities that could be adapted to different physical capabilities. Some royal children with dwarfism became accomplished craftspeople, their work valued for its quality and artistry rather than the status of its creator. The development of postal systems and long-distance communication created new opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to maintain relationships and conduct business beyond their immediate courts. Letter writing became an important skill, allowing them to participate in diplomatic correspondence, scholarly exchanges, and personal relationships that might be difficult to maintain through physical visits alone. These communication networks helped reduce isolation and expanded their influence beyond their physical presence. Religious orders sometimes provided welcoming environments for royal children with dwarfism who chose spiritual vocation. Monasteries and convents, with their emphasis on spiritual rather than physical qualities, could offer communities where these individuals found acceptance and purpose. Some became renowned for their theological learning, their devotional practices, or their service to their religious community. Their spiritual contributions were valued regardless of their physical characteristics. The tradition of medieval tournaments presented both challenges and opportunities for royal families that included children with dwarfism. While they could not participate as competitors, some became enthusiastic patrons, organizers, or judges of these events. Their understanding of strategy, their appreciation for skill and courage, and their ability to recognize excellence in others made them valuable contributors to these important social and military gatherings. Court physicians gradually developed more sophisticated approaches to caring for royal children with dwarfism, moving beyond superstition toward more practical and effective treatments. Pain management techniques, mobility assistance, and nutritional guidance improved throughout the medieval period. These medical advances, while still limited by the knowledge of the time, represented important progress in understanding and supporting individuals with dwarfism. The emergence of vernacular literature in various European languages provided new opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to engage with cultural expression in their native tongues. Poetry, storytelling, and early prose works in languages like Middle English, Old French, and Middle High German offered accessible forms of literary engagement. Some royal children with dwarfism became patrons or even creators of vernacular literature, contributing to the cultural development of their kingdoms. Diplomatic marriages between kingdoms sometimes involved complex negotiations about the future roles and responsibilities of royal children with dwarfism. Marriage contracts occasionally included specific provisions about living arrangements, ceremonial duties, and inheritance rights. These negotiations, while delicate, helped establish frameworks for inclusion and participation that could serve as models for other situations involving individuals with physical differences. The tradition of royal libraries and manuscript collections provided rich opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to contribute to cultural preservation and advancement. Many became accomplished scholars, translators, and collectors, their extensive reading and careful scholarship adding to the intellectual resources of their kingdoms. Their contributions to learning, while sometimes uncredited publicly, enriched the cultural heritage of medieval Europe. Palace gardens and horticultural pursuits offered peaceful retreats and engaging activities for royal children with dwarfism. Garden design began to include features that could be enjoyed by people of different physical capabilities: raised beds, accessible pathways, and seating areas at various heights. Some royal children with dwarfism became knowledgeable botanists, their understanding of plants and gardening techniques contributing to the beauty and productivity of palace grounds. The development of mechanical clocks and precise timekeeping created new opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to participate in court scheduling and administrative functions. Their attention to detail and organizational skills, often developed as adaptive strategies, made them valuable in roles that required precision and reliability. Time management became an area where physical stature was irrelevant, and competence was the only measure of success. International trade connections sometimes facilitated exchanges of knowledge and techniques relevant to supporting individuals with dwarfism. Mediterranean ports, Hanseatic League cities, and overland trade routes carried not only goods, but also information about accommodations, treatments, and social approaches from different cultures. These cultural exchanges gradually broadened European understanding and acceptance of human diversity. The tradition of royal genealogies and family histories gradually began to include more complete and honest accounts of all family members, including those with dwarfism. While earlier chronicles might have omitted or minimized such references, later medieval historians began to recognize the importance of complete family records. These more comprehensive genealogies provided better historical understanding and helped normalize the presence of diverse individuals within royal lineage. Artistic patronage by royal families that included children with dwarfism sometimes resulted in works that subtly celebrated human diversity and the beauty of difference. Commissioned paintings, sculptures, and decorative arts occasionally included themes of acceptance, inner beauty, and spiritual worth that transcended physical appearance. These artistic works, while not explicitly about dwarfism, helped create cultural environments that valued broader concepts of human worth and dignity. The emergence of banking and commercial systems created new opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to participate in economic activities that did not depend on physical presence or stature. Some became skilled in financial management, trade negotiations, and commercial correspondence. Their analytical abilities and attention to detail, combined with their royal status, made them effective participants in the growing medieval economy. Seasonal celebrations and festivals throughout the medieval calendar were gradually adapted to ensure inclusion of all royal family members. From spring planting ceremonies to autumn harvest celebrations, from midsummer festivities to midwinter observances, Palace event planners learned to create celebrations where every family member could participate meaningfully. These inclusive celebrations helped establish precedents for broader social acceptance and participation. The tradition of royal marriages as alliances between kingdoms sometimes created unexpected opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to serve as diplomatic bridges. Their unique perspectives, combined with their royal status and often exceptional intelligence, made them valuable intermediaries in complex international negotiations. Some became trusted diplomatic agents, their services valued by multiple courts for their insight and reliability. Medieval concepts of honor and nobility gradually expanded to encompass qualities beyond physical prowess and martial achievements. Royal children with dwarfism, through their examples of courage, intelligence, and dignity, helped broaden these concepts to include intellectual excellence, moral strength, and spiritual devotion. Their contributions to evolving definitions of nobility had lasting impacts on European aristocratic culture. Palace life during times of political crisis or military threat required special considerations for the safety and security of royal children with dwarfism. Evacuation plans, secure hiding places, and emergency protocols had to account for different physical capabilities and needs. These security measures, while necessary for protection, also demonstrated the value placed on all royal family members, regardless of their ability to defend themselves or escape quickly from danger. The development of more sophisticated court entertainment gradually included forms that could showcase the talents and abilities of royal children with dwarfism. Musical performances, storytelling, scholarly debates, and artistic exhibitions provided platforms where these individuals could demonstrate their capabilities and receive recognition for their achievement. Court entertainment became more diverse and inclusive as it adapted to celebrate various forms of human excellence. Educational reforms in later medieval periods began to recognize that different students might have different learning needs and capabilities. Royal children with dwarfism, often among the most well-educated individuals of their time, contributed to these educational developments through their own learning experiences and sometimes through their roles as teachers or mentors to others. Their educational achievements helped establish precedents for inclusive and adaptive learning approaches. The tradition of medieval crafts guilds occasionally provided opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to develop specialized skills and professional recognition. While their royal status might have made formal guild membership unusual, some participated in craft activities and contributed to the advancement of various trades and techniques. Their involvement in crafts helped bridge the gap between aristocratic and artisan culture. Religious pilgrimage routes across medieval Europe gradually developed accommodations and support systems that could assist travelers with various physical needs. Some royal children with dwarfism became enthusiastic pilgrims, their spiritual journeys taking them to holy sites across the continent. These pilgrimages provided opportunities for spiritual growth, social interaction, and personal achievement that transcended the limitations of court life. The emergence of postal and courier systems created new opportunities for royal children with dwarfism to maintain extensive correspondence networks. Their letters, when they survive in historical archives, reveal intelligent, well-educated individuals who participated actively in the intellectual and political life of their time. These correspondence networks helped reduce isolation and created communities of shared interest and mutual support. Palace architectural innovations gradually incorporated features that improved accessibility and comfort for residents with different physical needs. Ramps alongside steps, handrails at various heights, and doorways designed for easier passage became more common in later medieval construction. These architectural changes, while serving immediate practical needs, also represented evolving attitudes toward inclusion and universal design principles. The tradition of royal portraiture evolved to become more sensitive and skilled in representing individuals with dwarfism. Artists developed techniques for creating dignified, respectful portraits that captured personality and nobility while honestly representing physical characteristics. These portraits, when they survive, provide valuable historical evidence and demonstrate growing artistic sophistication in representing human diversity. Seasonal agricultural cycles and rural life provided connections between royal children with dwarfism and the broader population of their kingdom. Some became knowledgeable about farming techniques, livestock management, and rural crafts, their understanding helping to bridge the gap between court and countryside. These connections to rural life provided grounding experiences and broader perspectives on the lives of their subjects. The development of more sophisticated legal systems gradually addressed questions of rights, inheritance, and social participation for individuals with dwarfism. Legal scholars began to develop frameworks that balanced traditional expectations with practical considerations and individual capabilities. These legal developments, while incremental, represented important progress toward more inclusive and equitable social systems. International diplomatic protocols gradually developed to address the participation of royal family members with dwarfism in ceremonial and official functions. Embassy procedures, court presentations, and diplomatic receptions became more sophisticated in accommodating diverse physical needs while maintaining appropriate dignity and protocol. These diplomatic innovations helped establish international standards for inclusive representation. The tradition of medieval medicine gradually shifted from attempting to cure dwarfism toward managing health and maximizing comfort and capability. Court physicians developed better understanding of associated health issues and more effective approaches to preventive care. This medical evolution, while still limited by medieval knowledge, represented important progress in disability awareness and healthcare approaches. As we conclude this gentle journey through the hidden corridors of medieval royal life, we carry with us the quiet courage and remarkable resilience of these extraordinary children. Their stories, preserved in fragments and whispers across the centuries, remind us that true nobility has always resided in the human heart, rather than in physical stature. These young princes and princesses, born into a world of rigid expectations, yet determined to carve out spaces of dignity and achievement, left legacies that continue to inspire us today. Their lives, marked by both profound challenges and unexpected triumphs, teach us enduring lessons about the power of love, the importance of inclusion, and the remarkable capacity of the human spirit to transcend any obstacle. In remembering their gentle strength, we honor not only their individual courage, but also the eternal truth that every human being, regardless of their physical characteristics, possesses infinite worth and unlimited potential for contributing to the beauty and wisdom of our shared human story.